Hello and welcome to your video lecture. Today's video lecture is all about ethics and ethics in marketing. We're going to talk about pre-conventional and post-conventional morality, and we're going to talk about a lot of things in this lecture. But one of the main things that we're going to talk about is the difference between ethics and morals. As I'm going to say in the lecture, I think everybody knows right from wrong, but it's how you act on right from wrong I think that's most important within this lecture. We talk about how a code of ethics within an organization and the rules and regulations, not only within the organization but within the government, actually guides a lot of people's ethical decision making and ethical leadership. But it should go beyond that. It should be because it's the right thing to do. So we're going to talk about a lot of concepts and a lot of terms with regards to marketing and ethical behavior in this lecture, and I hope you enjoy it. At the end of the lecture, there's going to be 4 discussion questions. Please give me a page and a half, not per discussion question, but total, maybe a half page per discussion question or something like that, and turn that into me during class. So without further ado, let's get to ethics and social responsibility. So as I said in the introduction, this chapter is all about ethics and social responsibility. And as I said in the introduction, one of the things that we need to make sure that we're doing is we're talking about ethical leadership, not necessarily just ethics. Ethical leadership is key because, as I said in the introduction, people know right from wrong. It's how they manage that really holds the key to whether they're going to be successful and whether they're going to be doing the right thing or not. You see, there's lots of different things in a civil society that keeps companies doing the right thing, and that is what we know as social control. Social control is any means used to maintain behavioral norms. Social control within a company can be a code of ethics. Social control within a company can be written rules, laws, regulations within that company. There's social control in a specific society, and those are our laws that we are abiding by and what we need to do for those laws. And then there's behavioral norms. Behavioral norms are standards of proper, acceptable behavior. Behavioral norms are going to vary from culture to culture. What we feel is inappropriate or not necessarily good in our country doesn't necessarily mean that somebody won't think that it's not good in theirs. For instance, one of the things that we do is we feel that, marriage, for instance, you can only marry one person at a time. In other cultures, that's not true. You can marry multiple partners. So anyways, different social controls and different behavioral norms are going to vary from culture to culture. It's going to also vary from company to company. Some companies are very, very strict in their social control, and some companies are more lackadaisical. The more lackadaisical they are, the more the employees will try to get away with different things. So modes of social control. The first are ethics. These are moral principles or value that generally govern the conduct of individuals. There's laws. Those are ethical rules that are upheld by some type of police force or some type of, not necessarily police force, but some type of authority. And then there's formal and informal groups who have formal and informal rules or roles, and those could be professional organizations, professional clubs, etc., etc. All those are modes of social control. Now, one of the things that we need to make sure that we make a distinction of is the difference between ethics and morals. Morals are understanding right from wrong. Morals are what you believe. Morals are believing and knowing right from wrong. Ethics are how you act on those morals. You could have all types of moral fortitude, but also be unethical, which means you understand right from wrong, but you're not acting in right from wrong. So that is truly a distinction. Morals are those beliefs. Morals are right from wrong, and those beliefs from right from wrong, and what we feel is good and what we feel is not good. Ethics is how you carry out those morals, and that becomes a distinction. So There's other modes of social control. There's self-regulation. There are some people that are more morally or ethically stronger than others. And that's voluntarily being ethically strong or voluntarily being ethically good. And that's within oneself. Then there's also the media, and they're also a mode of social control. For instance, if you do something bad or your company does something bad, generally speaking, the media is going to get a hold of it and they're going to crucify you in the press. That happens all the time when people do some things that we feel are morally wrong or morally against what society deems right. When that happens, then the press gets a hold of it, and that person gets crucified in the press. And then finally, active civil societies are engaged in informal groups such as lobbyists and other groups that strive for social control and moral control and doing right from wrong. There's all kinds of environmental lobbyists out there. There's lobbyists for equal rights. There's lobbyists for all kinds of different social type of justices out there. And that's part of our social controls also. So ethics. Ethics is behavior. Morals is believing right from wrong, knowing right from wrong, understanding right from wrong. But ethics is the standard of behavior, and that is key. The key word here, and I'm going to circle it, the key word here is behavior. Behavior is what drives ethics. And that's where a lot of organizations get into trouble. Organizations know right from wrong. And when I do this lecture, I say this often. There isn't anybody out there. There's not anybody out there that doesn't know right from wrong. It's a problem is when that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is there, and you got to do something unethical in order to get it. And maybe you might not get caught. And the reward outweighs the risks. That's when people start pushing the line or pushing the envelope. And when that happens, when they start pushing that envelope, and when that happens, well, that's when things go awry. Because if you push the envelope from ethical behavior to get that pot of gold, and maybe it was just a little thing, and it worked. Well, the next time you're going to push the envelope a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And pretty soon you're breaking the law and you're acting like WorldCom or Enron or somebody like that. And therein lies the rub. If you know right from wrong, you need to act right from wrong, regardless of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And that is why, in my opinion, when we teach at the university level, at the college level, when we teach morals, we teach ethics, but we don't teach ethical management. We don't teach ethical leadership. And I think everybody knows morals, and I think everybody understands right from wrong, but it's ethical leadership. It's maintaining that code of ethics throughout your organization. I think that's key. Ethics consists of personal moral principles and how you act on personal moral principles. And ethics is also those unwritten rules. Remember, there are things that are not against the law, but are unethical. For instance, if it's a sealed bid and you go into somebody's office and the bid is sitting there, and you're bidding against whoever's bid that is sitting there. And the person that you're seeing in their office gets called out of the office. Now, it's a sealed bid. You're not allowed to look at that bid. But it might be a lot of money. And that bid is just sitting there. And you think, you know what? If I look at that bid, I can come in just a little bit lower and I'll get the business. Yet, that's not ethical because it's a sealed bid. So you got to ask yourself, do you look? And you say to yourself, well, you know what? What's the harm in looking? What's the harm? Let me just look. You know, make a lot of money for my company, make a lot of money for me. But that's unethical. Now, it's not going to kill anybody. No one's going to go to jail. It's not against the law because it's a sealed bid. But it is unethical. And therein lies the rub. Therein lies the rub. It's like, it's like cheating on an exam. Or downloading a paper. I'll probably find out because I'll run it through, all the other software programs that I have that checks those things. But let's say I don't. You probably won't go to jail for it. You might not even get caught, but it's unethical. And if you hold yourselves, and I go back to this, if self-regulation, if you hold yourselves in a high standard, then you'll hold yourself in a high standard the rest of your life. But if you start slipping now, you're only going to slip farther and farther and farther. And then eventually you might do something that's not only unethical, but it's against the law. So there's ethical theories. I'm not going to read these ethical theories to you. You can read them. You need to know them for the test. But the first one is deontological theory, which states that people should adhere to their obligations and duties. Then there's utilitarian ethical theory, that is that you can predict the consequences, and depending on the consequences, you're going to act ethical or unethical. There's the causist ethical theory, which compares current ethical dilemmas with similar ethical dilemmas and their outcomes. So you say, well, the last time I did this and it worked, even though it was unethical, maybe I'll do it again. That's the caustic ethical theory. Moral relativism is the belief in time and place ethics. That is, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. For instance, if they bribe in Indonesia, then you should bribe also. If doing business means bribing somebody in another country, then you should bribe also. Note a caution here, though. I don't care what country you're in. Bribes are illegal, and you can get extradited and back to the United States and spend a whole lot of time in jail. So don't ever do that, even if they do it. Moral relativism does not mean it's right. Just because they're doing it in Rome doesn't mean you can do it too. In other words, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, that is very, very dangerous thinking, because oftentimes other countries have different moral relativists, and they are bad for us. And then finally, virtue ethics is a character trait valued as being good. And that's where I want you guys to be. Character traits that are valued as being good. And I think that's what comes down to these ethical theories. So ethical behavior in business. Actions taken may vary depending on the company. It also depends on the ethical theory that the company adheres to. But I'm going to tell you something. If we all would adhere to virtue ethics, the world would be a better place. We wouldn't have to worry about the Enron situation or the WorldCom situation or people being cheated out of money. Morals are rules that people develop. Ethics are how people act on them. Morals are stemmed from culture. It's stemmed from religion. It's stemmed from the way that you're brought up. It's stemmed from the way that you think and that your parents act and all those types of things. And then, of course, ethical behavior is based on those morals. And then there's characterization of being either good and bad. Good and bad is so relative. It's like hot and cold. Sometimes, I'd say I'm hot, and someone say, well, I'm cold, or what have you. Good and bad tends to be very relative, and it tends to be a relative term, and that's where we get into some problems. So, morality and business ethics. Ethical values are situation specific. However, again, if you know right from wrong, acting on right from wrong and acting on right versus wrong is really going to guide your ethics. One approach is really to develop a personal set of ethics, one that aligns with business ethics, aligns with ethics within your organization, and then move on it. You can always fall back on rules. However, we shouldn't have rules that guide everything. We shouldn't say, well, there's no law against it, so I'm going to do it anyways, even when we know it's the wrong thing to do. Because like I said, oftentimes, ethically is not necessarily illegal, or poor ethics is not necessarily illegal. And then finally, the last one is developing a moral character that says that we are going to act ethically no matter where we are, no matter what we do, and no matter whatever rules are that are involved in this. Now, there's 3 levels of ethics and 3 levels of what we call morality. And this is how we act on these moral principles. So again, it's important to understand that there's pre-conventional morality, there's conventional morality, and there's post-conventional morality. Pre-conventional morality says that I'm going to act ethically. I'm going to do the right thing for fear of being punished. Generally speaking, children, because they haven't developed an ethical sense yet, children act only on pre-conventional morality. They act for either fear of punishment or an anticipation of a reward. Generally speaking, that's how children will act. For instance, I have a 10-year-old daughter. My 10-year-old daughter acts ethically and follows the rules for fear of being punishment, for fear of being punished, or because she wants to be rewarded. Then as you grow, as you mature, you come into conventional morality. Many millennials are there on conventional morality. Conventional morality means that you're going to act ethically because of what your friends or your peers will think of you. And oftentimes that seems to be about where you are. You do things based on your peer group. Right now, at your stage of life, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. This is, everybody goes through it. But oftentimes at your stage of life, you're very, very influenced by your peer groups and by social acceptance. So conventional morality means you're going to act ethically based on social acceptance. You want people to like you. You want to fit in. You want people to think highly of you. And you really want to act based on what you think you feel people will think of you. So you'll act ethically that way. And then finally, the last one is post-conventional morality. It's kind of putting the first two together, but post-conventional morality is acting ethically because it's the right thing to do. It doesn't matter what someone will think of you. It doesn't matter whether you're going to be punished or rewarded or what have you. You act ethically because it's the right thing to do. And oftentimes, it takes a level of maturity to get to post-conventional morality. We would like to see everybody get there. Some people never get out of pre-conventional morality. And oftentimes, those are the people that really push the envelope and push the law. Sometimes they end up in jail. But where we really want people to strive for is post-conventional morality, which says that I'm a mature adult, I've hit my stride, and I am going to act ethically because it is the right thing to do, not because of what somebody thinks of me. So ethical decision making, again, this goes back to ethical leadership. Ethical decision making is all about making decisions based on right from wrong and then leading your organization based on right from wrong. It's around top management and how top management views ethics and how top management feels that ethics are going to be part of their organization. And again, some companies are excruciatingly ethical and they've got it really written down. Other companies, not so much. And generally speaking, those companies oftentimes get into trouble. These are companies with a social conscience, and they want to make sure that there is no probability at all of any kind of harmful outcome, so they're acting that way. And harmful outcome is not just a law. It's not just how the law views you or how somebody else is viewed by the law or what have you. What I mean by a harmful outcome is people can stop doing business with you. And then finally, generally speaking, ethical decision making goes because there's a number of people that are affected by your decisions. If you look at WorldCom, if you look at Enron, a lot of people lost their life savings because upper management acted unethically. So it's not just about the decisions you make, but it's also about a bunch of people that you're going to affect along the way. So there is a code of ethics, which is a guideline to help marketing managers and other managers and other employees. Those code of ethics oftentimes are sent down by top management, and top management not only describes the code of ethics, but top management also lives by the code of ethics. And the most ethical companies in the world, generally speaking, live, breathe, and die by a code of ethics. There's also a code of ethics that our government lets down, and that is laws that not only govern here, but also ethics in other countries. The first one is the FCPA, or the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. That says that it doesn't matter where you are in the world, bribery and other unethical, illegal transactions can be punished and will be punished. So you'll be extradited back in the United States and you'll be punished. Remember what I said before with that one, ethical decision making, when in Rome, do as the Romans do? Because of the FCPA, you can't do that. If in Indonesia, the cost of doing business is to bribe the government officials, and you bribe the government officials, that's against the FCPA. And you'll be extradited, and you'll spend time in jail if you get caught. So even though others are doing it, we, as American business people, when we're doing business abroad and when we're doing business in other countries, we cannot. It's been criticized because it puts us, U.S. companies, in a bad spot. Let's say that you want to do a big deal with the Indonesian government, and you're bidding against Russia, and you're bidding against China, and you're bidding against some African countries or what have you, and they don't have an FCPA, and they go ahead and bribe the officials. You can't. So you're going to lose the business because you can't. And oftentimes the FCPA has been criticized that and saying that it handicaps U.S. businesses, but it's the right thing to do. It truly is the right thing to do. And when you look back at it, it is. So other countries have followed us in the FCPA. Most of the, what I would call developed countries, a lot of Western Europe countries, have implemented their own anti-bribery laws. And the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and the United Nations are encouraging these countries to implement their own bribery laws, etc. So now moving to corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility is doing the right thing by the social conscious and the social platforms here in the United States. Corporate social responsibility is not just following the laws; it's going above and beyond the laws. It's philanthropy, giving to charities. It's bucket of chicken for a cause. When what's the name? Who's the one with a bucket of chicken? White-haired guy with a mustache, wears a white suit. I hate the commercials too. Can't remember. But anyways, they got a bucket of chicken. And in October, that bucket of chicken is pink. Not the chicken, but the bucket is pink. It would be bad if you had pink chicken. But the bucket is pink, and every dollar or something like that they donate to breast cancer awareness. That's corporate social responsibility. That's not only doing business ethically, but giving back to the community in which you're serving, giving back to the United States, giving back to different charities, and being philanthropic. If you look at somebody like Tom Golisano, Tom Golisano's an extraordinarily generous man, where he's built Golisano's Children's Home. He's very philanthropic. So he's made $1 billion, and if I had $1 billion, I could give a lot of it away too. Yeah, he still has, and so he's very philanthropic, and that's a good example of corporate social responsibility. Stakeholder theory is that the social responsibility is paying attention to all the stakeholders that is involved in your company. Many of the stakeholders can be the community that you serve, suppliers, customers, other organizations that you're in business with, the customers, everybody is part of the stakeholders. So social responsibility says that you have a social responsibility to everybody that your organization touches. Customers generate revenue for the organization, therefore the organization should give back to customers and give back to charities, etc. The local community also, through its support of organizations, gives organizations money, so the organization should give back to that. Suppliers, and finally owners of the organization also. All of those are part of corporate social responsibility. So there's arguments for and against social responsibility. Obviously, the arguments for social responsibility is very strong. It's the right thing to do. The businesses have the resources to devote to this. It makes them look better in the media. It protects them from lobbyists. It helps prevent them from government regulations. And the other thing is, it's profitable. People will buy from organizations that they feel are socially responsible, and vice versa. People will stop buying from companies that they feel are not socially responsible. Now, the argument against is it takes away focus from making profits. I don't agree with that. Because if you do the right thing, I think you'll garner extra business because you did. And it also says management spends shareholders' money on environmental initiatives. I don't believe that either, because I think if you do the right thing, I think you'll get more business in the long run, and you'll have more money to spend on those environmental initiatives. You got to remember, there is no worldwide watchdog. There is no worldwide police force for those corporations that are acting responsibly and doing the right thing. The only watchdog, the only worldwide organization that will punish or reward companies for doing the right thing is you, consumers. You are the ones that are going to reward or punish organizations for doing the right thing. So, therefore, I don't agree that it'll take away profits, because I think actually by not doing the right thing, you won't have profits. So remember, consumers are the worldwide watchdog. So because of that, there's been a major growth in social responsibility. Not only increasing pressure from governments, from other things like that, but consumers, the worldwide watchdogs, are increasingly putting more pressure on organizations to do the right thing and become more social responsibilities. Because of that, the United Nations came up with a Global Compact. The Global Compact is sustainability, and the idea is that being socially responsible around the world will garner business. There should be organizations that join forces to do that, and environmentally sustainable companies will minimize threats to the environment and threats to human rights and other violations. So supply chain sustainability, or worldwide sustainability, really has 4 different categories: environment, human rights, labor and labor rights, and corruption. So you don't need to know every single one of the sustainability rules, but you need to know for the test that there are four categories in there: human, environment, labor, and corruption. And then there's 10 principles in the Global Compact. You need to understand that too. 10 principles in the Global Compact. It was launched in 2000. They've got 8,000 participants, 10 university accepted principles with 4 major categories. And it's really a framework for organizations to act responsibly. Green marketing is a term that when you do something good and is sustainable, you're going to market that. You're going to make sure people know it so that you'll garner more business, so that you'll garner more support from the environmental lobbyists, from consumers, etc. Greenwashing, on the other hand, greenwashing is pretending you're being green and marketing that you're being green, but really in the background, really not caring much for the environment. So that's the difference between green marketing and greenwashing. So leaders in social responsibilities, Patagonia, Tom Shoes, M&M Mars says that they're going to be off of fossil fuels by 2020. That's coming up in a few years. Lots of companies out there, Kubota, are doing social responsible and sustainability initiatives. Cause-related marketing. Cause-related marketing is just that. It's marketing for a cause. The best example I can give you is that bucket of chicken example. Also the NFL, the first weekend of October, you see all the NFL players wearing pink gloves, pink shoes, etc. for breast cancer awareness. Lots of other cause-related marketing out there. Dove's Real Beauty campaign, they've had that going for about 5 years, etc. It's sometimes very controversial getting involved in something like that, but it's a marketing effort that targets social and charitable causes and helps market in order to raise money for those causes. The NFL, Dove's Real Beauty campaign, Always for young women. Some of those others, they're really environmentally as well as cause-related marketing efforts. So that concludes our video lecture for today. Here are the discussion questions that I had talked to you at the beginning of the lecture in the introduction. Please, double space, give me a half a page or so for each question. Should be no longer than 2 pages. Maybe give me, page and a half answering these questions. Please type it so that I can read it. And I'd like to have it by Friday of this week. So again, 4 questions, double spaced, 11, 12 point font. Don't spend a lot of time writing it, but please give me about a page and a half to 2 pages with these questions, and I look forward to seeing you in class. Take care.